This week, all eyes on Donelson and D.C. But first thing on this week, the 14th, the USS Escalante is launched, an ironclad warship. The firepower this gives the Navy is incredible. It already threatens the very hurt Confederate Navy. Ironclad gunboats are rare enough, and this is a warship. The equivalent to even an indestructible battery on the sea. But way more importantly on the 14th, Fort Donelson. The Confederacy is led by Brigadier General John B. Floyd. The right wing is under Brigadier General Simon B. Buckner. It is made up of two brigades under one Colonel John C. Brown. No relation to the more famous John Brown. Most of the army is under Brigadier General Gideon J. Pillow. He has 7 brigades. First is under Colonel Adolphus Hyman. Second under Colonel Thomas J. Davidson. Third under Colonel Joseph Drake. Fourth under Colonel John Head. This belongs to Colonel Gabriel Warden. Sixth is led by Colonel John McClellan, and the 7th is under Colonel William E. Baldwin. There's also a cavalry brigade under Colonel Nathan Bedford Forrest. The artillery units are under Lieutenant Colonel Milton Haynes. And in the early morning, Floyd calls a council of war. And the council comes up with a breakout strategy that will be led by Pillow. Pillow readies his men. He's actually a very good man for the job. He hates defensive actions. You can only win if you attack. But then, a gunshot. From where? No one knows. Then there's a thud. An aide has fallen dead. This worries the normally aggressive commander, and the breakout is called off. Floyd is actually very furious. This was basically their last hope. It's all over because of the death of one aide? Noon. General Wallace's brigades arrive, and the Union strengthens their center. In an hour, the majority of the gunboats arrive, transporting 10,000 men. The battle line is ready, the Navy's ready, and victory is assured. The Union uses the 10,000 men from the gunboats to also extend their line, but Grant doesn't need the infantry. Fort Henry fell just to gunboats. Donelson will do the same. Foote, the commander of the fleet, disagrees with Grant, but relents, and at 3 in the afternoon, the gunboats move in and open fire. No response from the fort, so they move in closer, and a bit more. Then, at 1,000 feet, the Confederate artillery opens up, unleashing deafening gunfire. Foote gets wounded. This is St. Louis loses control and floats down the river. The rest of the ships are also very heavily damaged. And at 4:30, the assault is over. The St. Louis took 60 shots. The Carondelet 55, the Louisville 35, and Pittsburgh 20. The victory actually surprises both the Union and the Confederacy. And despite the heavy damage to the fleet, only 4 men of the Union die in one boat, 4 in another, and 44 are wounded. Though, in total, the gunboats did no great damage to the fort, or even inflicted casualty. Grant realizes that the army will either win or lose this battle, though the Union still does have control of the river behind Fort Donelson, making any sort of withdrawal from that side risky at best. In the early morning of the 15th, the Confederates come up with another plan of assault. Mass all of their forces on the Union right. And, surprisingly, they do it unnoticed. The Confederates, though, are not a united front, and they engage with battle before all the generals are ready on their side. At 6, rebels unleash a rebel yell, and the Union right soon collapses. The right forms a perpendicular to McClellan's men, and the fight truly begins. The Union is surrounded on 2 sides, unprepared and disorganized. They hold, but barely. McClellan sends word to Brigadier General Wallace for help, but Wallace does nothing, because Grant told him earlier to not engage the enemy. Normally, one would go and ask Grant what to do, but Grant can't be further consulted because he is currently down by the gunboats. After 2 hours, McClellan's line is overrun and he's forced even further back. Running up behind a river, he takes a defensive position. Wallace sees the desperate situation with his own 2 eyes and moves in to help McClellan, but this will take time. Confederates just need one more assault to break the Union line. But they don't. At 12:30, it seems the Confederates are done attacking for the day. Gunfire is exchanged, and the Confederate artillery rips the Union reinforcements, but no major charge, advance, or offensive motion is taken. Wallace can get his men into line, but things are still not looking good for the Union. They need Grant. They need a leader. But the Confederates don't do anything. A fight is broken out between the generals within the Confederate forces, meaning no major action is taken. They argue to either press the assault or escape, and of course neither happens. But what does happen is 3 piecemeal assaults, forcing the Confederates then to withdraw to a ridge. Grant arrives a little after 12:30 and he gets his men ready to attack. He orders Foote to commence a bombardment. He tells McClellan to take back the right. The Union counterattack begins, hoping to force the Confederates back to their battlements at the start of the day. 3 columns are formed and the advance starts. Colonel Morgan Smith is the main column, and he advances uphill, using Zouave tactics. He advances, seeks cover, and advances once more, after the enemies wasted their shots among the hidden men. By night, the 2 forces are back where they were in the morning, except for a major hole in the Union line, and 4,000 casualties altogether. From the night of the 15th and the morning of the 16th, another council of war is held. The 4 generals in the fort agree to surrender. But Floyd can't because he would be charged with corruption when he was Secretary of War in the Buchanan administration. So Floyd leaves, meaning Pillow is in charge. But Pillow's too important to surrender. He isn't. And he also escapes. Rear General Simon Buckner remains to surrender. Disgusted by the idea of surrender, Colonel Force exclaims, "I did not come here to surrender my command," and leaves through the earlier mentioned hole in the Union line. His men are the last ones to leave before Brigadier General Buckner asks Grant for terms of surrender. Buckner and Grant are friends, in fact. Grant owes Buckner money, so Buckner sees himself getting good terms. And here's what Grant sent back. "Sir, you're the date proposing armistice and appointment of the commissioners to settle terms for capitulation is just received. No terms except unconditional and immediate surrender can be accepted. Propose to move immediately upon your works. I am, sir, very respectfully your obedient servant, U.S. Grant, Brigadier General." It seems like Buckner isn't getting his money back. And Grant actually has good reason to move on the fort. Rear General Smith has collapsed. The Union right wing is pretty much at threat to entirely roll up the entire Confederate line. Grant doesn't need to assault the Confederate positions, because Buckner writes to Grant, "Sir, the distribution of forces under my command, incident to an unexpected change of commander, and the overwhelming force under your command compel me, notwithstanding the brilliant success of the Confederate arms yesterday, to accept the ungenerous and unchivalrous terms which you propose." The battle is over. The Union suffered 507 men dead, 1,976 wounded, and 208 captured. The Confederates lose 327 men, 1,927 wounded, and 12,392 men surrendered to the Union. Every facing Grant has been captured. The fort and its 42 guns captured. The Cumberland River captured. Full General Albert Sidney Johnston has just lost a third of his men. Grant has captured more men in this one battle than all other American generals combined. And he has cut Johnston's line in 2, now safe to close the Kentucky operation for this war. Grant also gets promoted to Major General. Major General, unconditional surrender Grant. 2 days later, after the amazing victory at Donelson, the Confederate Congress meets. The party makeup is 100% independent. What? Yes, there will be no parties in the Confederate Congress. Parties show disunity. The Confederacy doesn't have disunity. The provisional president of the Senate is Alexander H. Stephens. President pro tempore, Robert Hunter. And Thomas S. Bocock is elected Speaker of the House. Stephens is, of course, also the Vice President. He has been in the U.S. House of Representatives since 1843, before leaving for the Confederacy, of course. He's a fire and brimstone speaker, a man trapped in ideology, and a man who does not want to take orders from Davis, his superior. But that's okay. Davis just needs to find someone he can work with who also knows what they are doing. Hunter. Hunter is a man who understands finance, being the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee in the 1850s. In that position, he led major reform of U.S. coinage. His drawbacks: he's abrasive and hard to work with, and not a fan of Davis. In fact, this isn't the first time he's been forced to work with Davis. In 1861, he was the Confederate Secretary of State, before stepping down to become a senator. So he isn't exactly the savior Jefferson Davis was looking for. Bocock. Bocock was in the House of Representatives from 1848 till succession. He isn't experienced, but he is someone who Davis can work with. Will he be the savior Davis is looking for? Only time will tell. The last days of the week are political, so we must go to D.C. On the 19th, Senator Lyman Trumbull of Illinois moved to take up the bill to confiscate the property, free the slave of the rebels. How is this different from the Confiscation Act? Well, first, this is compulsory. You also have the ability to confiscate property, including slaves. This is a command to do so. And second, Trumbull doesn't mean individuals of rebels, but the land of rebels. This instead would free slaves in every single territory in rebellion. This issue is not taken up this week, so the emancipation will have to wait. An act that is talked about and passed this week, the Anti-Coolie Act. California has had an influx of cheap Chinese immigrants. This makes up a good portion of the workforce, so why the act? Angry white workers are facing salary competition, and they are voters, so the issue goes to Congress. The US and China have had a very unsteady relationship, helped by the recent Second Opium War, which pitted the two nations against each other. The act doesn't actually touch on immigrant workers or permitted immigration. Instead, it bans trade with the Qing Empire, makes legal immigration way harder. It also gives power for the U.S. to search any vessel owned by any citizen of the U.S. and any citizen vessel traveling to the U.S. just to search for items from China. Any citizen of the U.S.? Sure. Any legal vessel that isn't a war vessel? Search it. Then, there is Sickles. This fixing of the speech crisis has given our man much needed strength and energy. He returns to Bud Ferry with a plan. Enough waiting around. Soon, I will engage the enemy. Instead of doing my normal exit this week, I will instead read a letter by Major General George B. McClellan. Soldiers! I announce to you glorious victories. The names of Mill Springs, Roanoke, Fort Henry, and Fort Donelson will be the pride of all true Americans, and will cause the hearts of all loyal men to throb with joy. If I judge right by taking my feelings as yours, the desire to eclipse these deeds is in your minds. You wish to strike your blow, and show that the Army of the Potomac strikes hard and true. I have long held you back, my comrades, at first in order to cement you into an army. I have also restrained you for another reason also. I wish you to strike when the time arrived to give the death blow to this accursed rebellion. I am satisfied. The time is now. When I place you in front of the rebels, remember that the great God of battle ever favors a just cause. You have battles to win, fatigues to endure, suffering to account for. But remember, they will conduct you to a goal covered with glory, and each of you will bear the proud honor of being one of the men who crushed the most wicked rebellion that ever threatened the institution of government.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed the fateful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on.
Hello, it's the entire Civil War week by week team here. That is a weird motto to have. And I want a new outro. So, if you liked the video, please like it. If you want to see more, you should be seeing suggested videos right about now. And if you want to know what happens next week, please subscribe. And if you want to share history, give me suggestions in a more easy way than YouTube comments, or want to tell me how wrong I am, please check out the channel's Discord.